All right, hello? Okay. So, thank you for being here. This is perfect, right? Coming after Maria with this, where she was talking about UI components, and I learned a lot too, so thank you very much. And also coming after Philip, because this is a story about my failures, right? And it's a talk about where this failure has led me, and I steal good ideas. So thanks, Philip, for the brilliant intro, right? Anyway, what I want to talk about is ClojureScript in Magento 2. And if you're not thinking, what the fuck? Like, why would somebody want to do that? Honestly, is this just some, yeah, you know, you can do nice things, but I don't want to fight the framework because that's the whole reason why I use a framework. I want to use a framework so I can do my job quickly, so I don't have to build everything from scratch. Because, like all of us, right, I need to get stuff done. Right? I want to deliver quickly and in okay quality. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? I love clean code, but as long as it's okay, it's kind of maintainable, I'm fine, right? So I do not want to fight the framework. But sometimes it feels as if the framework is fighting me. And who knows that feeling? Just, okay, I'm not alone. Oh, thank you, good. As an e-commerce developer, I want to build sites with Magento without being frustrated and wrestling tangled UI components. So, thank you, Maria. This made this talk obsolete. I don't know. For me, I had a couple of experiences where I was trying to do a small task, like adding a checkbox or similar things, and it took me 2 days to get a half-working version done. And that's just, it kills me. I don't want to work that way. I mean, I got it done, but okay, that's not for me. So, I would like to love all UI components. I like the idea behind them. It's great. But it just hasn't happened to me, right? I failed. I really sat down more than once, spent a week, and failed. So what's the next best thing, right? I still want to work with Magento here and use it as good as possible. And the next best thing for me is to not use the UI components when working with them takes an unreasonable amount of time. Now, sometimes I can use them and it's fine. And other times, and check out backend grids and forms, right? Those are the times I really don't like working with them. So I try to find some other way. And to do that, I need a tool that allows me to use this Magento as much as possible. But it allows me to selectively rebuild the parts that I do not want. And I want to make that choice on a case-by-case basis. So I do not want some kind of lock-in, right? I want flexibility here. And these are the concrete options that I found that I had to look at. Right, and I don't want to talk too long about each of these. I don't have a lot of time available. All of them have some pros and cons. There are certain factors which were decisive here. I do not want to use JavaScript because it's really not that much fun to me. It's not that attractive. It has a lot of quirks, basically. Cross-browser compatibility, or we have to compile stuff or transpile stuff, which leads us further away from it again. So we have other languages available if we want to include that kind of build step, right? Anyway, for me the closest two candidates were Scala.js and ClojureScript because they had the biggest interop story of integrating into an existing platform, and I only want to replace parts of Magento and still continue to work with the rest, right? But in the end I've settled on ClojureScript. And I might have been somewhat biased here because I've been writing Clojure for some time, and ClojureScript is just a JavaScript version for it, but there are some other reasons which I unfortunately do not have time to go into details why I think this is a very good choice. And, well, ClojureScript is what we're going to look at now. So, what is ClojureScript? Who's actually heard of ClojureScript before? Okay, a few people. Oh, maybe 10. Who's used it? Yay! 1! Awesome! Cool! Oh, good. You're the first dude I know who's actually used ClojureScript inside of the Magento community. I'm just assuming you, dude. I can't really see you. Sorry if that's not true. Anyway, ClojureScript is a Lisp. And Lisp is an interesting language because it was invented in the 60s and it's still around and pretty much alive and kicking. And Lisp is a play on words, Lisp and processor, right? Because Lisp processes lists. And it just so happens that the subtitle on the slide is, in Lisp, it is a list. Because it's a list, in Lisp is a pair of parentheses with some things in between, 0 or more items. So this is a list with 3 things. Right. Things that you need to know. I don't want to go too deep into all the details about Clojure. I just want to give you a brief overview and then give you a little demo so you get maybe an idea of the feeling how it is to work with this. So Clojure is a hosted language, meaning we write Clojure code and then it is compiled, and it's compiled to something that can run into an existing platform. So for example, it can be compiled to Java bytecode, and then it can run on the JVM alongside any other Java libraries. Or it can be compiled to JavaScript, right? And then it runs in the browser or Node or any JavaScript engine. Or there's a version that can be compiled to CLR and it runs on the Microsoft Common Language runtime. So that's the idea of Clojure here. And the different versions of Clojure are called Clojure, ClojureScript, Clojure CLR accordingly. There is no Clojure PHP, but the thought crossed my mind, so you never know. Anyway, the philosophy of Clojure is to embrace the host runtime. So it makes interoperability with the runtime and existing libraries a first-class matter. Right? Our applications never exist in isolation. They always have to communicate and work with existing libraries and platforms, so that's what it's there for. But before I want to show a demo, there's one thing I want to address right up front. Everybody who sees Lisp for the first time is kind of overwhelmed by parentheses. But turns out that's really... I had the same experience, by the way, right? It actually turns out that's a non-issue. It's like it takes a day or so and we have great IDEs to support us and suddenly it doesn't matter at all anymore. Because, look at this. The first line here is PHP. Hopefully most of us know this. Okay? So we have a function call, print with an argument, right? And we put the argument inside of a pair of parentheses. Now, to make this into a Lisp function call, all that happens is we take the left parentheses and move it to the left of the row. And now we have a list. And the first thing in a list is the function call, and the remaining things in the list are the arguments. So there are the same amount of parentheses. Unbelievable, right? Just look at it. It's 2 and 2. And that's the whole secret. It just looks different. It's like an optical illusion. It's just a matter of being used to it. And that's pretty easy. Anyway, one further thing is all the host runtime environments all have objects, and that's something, these kind of class-based objects are things that Lisp usually doesn't have. So I just want to show you how that works. If we have an object in JavaScript, like the string Magento, we call a method on it by separating with dot to lowercase, for example. If we want to call the same method from ClojureScript, we put the method first in the list, and then to indicate it's a method, we put a dot in front of the method name, and then we pass the object as the first argument. Simple. Here, that's what it looks like if we have a method with an argument. We call the .log method on the console object, passing in the string debug. And this JS thing here, that's a namespace. Clojure has no global namespace. Everything's inside of a namespace. That's actually pretty sweet. No namespaces is one of the big issues of JavaScript. And because JavaScript has this global namespace, it needs to be exposed because of interop, right? So they created this virtual JS namespace, which is like the global JavaScript namespace. And there's some syntactic sugar. Every time we want to call a method on an object in global scope, in JavaScript global scope, we just can call it in regular syntax with a JS in front of it, and we're done. Okay, so let's have a look how this can be utilized maybe in Magento. We can either use it inside of a module. And then we want to configure the Clojure's compiler to compile the JavaScript into the Vue Frontend Web directory, so it can be accessed just like any other JavaScript file in a module. Or, and that's actually what I've used more, is we can choose to create some kind of layer in Magento. Then it's more like for the whole project. It's not modularized like a Magento module. And then we compile it straight into pub.js, for example. And to get started, if you actually want to try this out, God forbid, right? It's a good idea to put the script tag that includes the JavaScript first in the header, before require.js is included. There are ways to work around it, and I don't want to go deeper into explaining why, but to get started, that helps, and then it just works, right? All right, so let's have a look at a demo. Here we go. Oops. That looks different. Let me go out of full screen mode and try again. Interesting. All right. Okay. Almost there. So my usual setup for Clojure development is I have the IDE on one side and the browser on the other side. Okay, you'll see in a minute why that's kind of good. Okay, so this is a plain Magento 2.2 install. Didn't have time to update to 2.1 yet. And there's only one module. Yeah, I'm prepping for a talk, dude. Anyway, I only have one module here. Yeah, example gift list. So what it is there's a bunch of sample data, and in each product we have a little button so we can decide, okay, this I want to give this as a present to, for example, Ben. Okay, and it's going to be listed here on a gift plan. Yeah. Okay, typo. Let's try that again. It's hard to type with only one hand available. That didn't work out well. Okay, Ben, Tony, and so on. Okay. You get the idea. So this is just a little React component here, and it's actually rendered by ClojureScript. So I have a typo here. I want to fix this. So at the moment, it's not possible to remove anything. And you might have recognized I'm using the classic to-do list demo here, right? I didn't have time for a more complex example. Originally, my idea was to write a checkout during the talk in an hour, but I only had 25 minutes, sorry. So anyway, here is the module. And inside of this module, there's a project CLJ file that's kind of like the composer.json. That's where we can configure where it should be compiled to, and we list the dependencies. And because of the screen resolution, I'll just go to the product detail page. That works a bit better. And there's also a button here to add things to the gift list, and down here we have a gift list tab. All right, so the actual ClojureScript here, I put it into subdirectory CLJS source, and here are the source files. And I want to, first of all, before I start development, I want to start a file watcher so it will automatically, continuously compile the files that I write. And to start that, I'll run a tool called Line. That's kind of like Composer or Gulp or whatever. Line REPL. Okay. So this laptop is from 2012. It takes maybe 20-30 seconds to get up to speed, but I generally run this command once a day, and then it just kind of does its job over the day. And it will drop me into a read eval print loop. That's what this REPL stands for. Here we go. And now I can type expressions like function plus a couple of arguments into a list, and it gets evaluated. And that's kind of nice, but I want to start file watcher now, so I'll just type start watcher. And now it's actually compiling my source code to ClojureScript, to JavaScript. That's it. And now up here, there's one more step that I do, and that is it echoed out the port number here. And I've got a PHP Storm plugin installed here called ClojureKit. It's pretty simple. There are a lot more sophisticated integrations, but it's actually all that's needed. So now I want to connect my PHP Storm to this running Clojure process, because then PHP Stom knows all about the functions I define, about the state of any variables. It's like having a direct line into the running application, so even the values of variables and everything are available to the REPL. Okay, so that connected, and now I want to start. So at the moment, Clojure is using the Java runtime, but I now want to switch into the browser evaluation environment. So it will use ClojureScript. And there we go. So now if I type expressions, instead of evaluating them in Java, they'll be evaluated in the runtime of my browser. There we go. Okay. So now, how can we add a little piece of code here so we can remove items to fix this? Well, there's a namespace here called showedList, and you might see this is basically arrays, right? So all these square brackets, just like in PHP or JavaScript, those are arrays. And I've got a representation of the DOM here. So this is a div. This represents a div with a block class and a widget class, and that contains another div with a block title. So it's very common to just work with data instead of writing functions. Anyway, if I change some of the code here and save, then it will recompile, and you can see it immediately changes in the browser, right? So I have live reload for anything that I do here. So let's see. So we render a gift list. That's this function here, and the gift list applies the function gift list recipient to each recipient, and the resolution here is really bad. Whatever. Maybe. Okay, and then each gift list recipient, if he has some gifts, we render all the gifts by mapping the gift function, and here we render the gifts. And unfortunately, I have to put the microphone out of the hand right now because I have to use two hands to type, otherwise this won't work at all. I'll just talk, but unfortunately, I don't think that'll make it into the presentation video. Oh, thank you. Or this. Hello, hello. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Very good. Even better. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so I want to add a little close button here, something like this. And yep, that's the right place. I've got an X behind each item. Let's make a link out of that. So I want to add a tag. Okay, how does that look? Oh, did I save? Here we go. Okay, now it's a link. Let's give it some functionality. So I'll add a onClick handler here. And where I'll pass in an anonymous function, and that anonymous function will dispatch an event, and the event code will be remove. And you can see I already defined that in a different place, and PHP Storm knows that Clojure knows about it, so it can give me autocompletion. And I'll dispatch the remove gift event for this recipient and this scoop. So if I save this now, I can start, I can remove things, great. But I'm not quite satisfied that I've got the insertion cursor here, so I'll just change that so it's a style pointer. So these curly braces are like maps, like JavaScript objects. So it's kind of familiar actually. So here I want to say my pointer should be, my cursor should be a pointer. Okay. And, yep, okay, that's good. On a high resolution, this is actually kind of nice having both at the same time, seeing the code and the other stuff in together, but I hope you can imagine. So now I want to take the same code and maybe add it to remove a recipient in total. So let's create a little UI component that can be reused as a remove button. So for that, I'll copy the A tag and define a new function. That's the define function to define a new function. I want to call it rm gift or rm button. And it takes one argument. It takes the event to dispatch when it's clicked. And I'll just paste this in here, the A tag, and I'll say dispatch the event, please. Oops, typo. We get nice compile warning and a line message. Okay, that looks good. So now I can replace the existing A tag here with a component, RM button, with the code I want to have dispatched. So it still should work. Okay, very good. Now I'll take the same code and move it into behind the recipient and call the event remove recipient. And that should be easily reusable. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is, you can see, it's a very quick feedback loop. And that's something I thoroughly enjoy as a developer. It brings me into, I try something, don't like it, remove it, try something slightly different, yeah, that's better. It really can carry the whole development process forward. The shorter the feedback loop, the faster I can develop and the quicker I have results. It's like Phil said, right? It's fail fast and then you can succeed fast. It's incredibly easy to debug, right? I immediately see what's wrong as soon as I do it. So that's a very nice developer experience for me. So far I've just shown you like how to define markup in this weird DOM array syntax. It's called hiccup, by the way. I want to show you one example of interop with Magento UI component. For that, I want to check out another Git tag that I've got here in this repository. Git checkout force 2.5, that's the one. And the way that looks is, so what I want to do is, when I log in here, yeah, I'll add something again to the gift list. I want to have a gift for John. There we go. Okay, very good. But if I'm logged in, I want to render the customer's name here, right? That's like John, my gift list instead of just gift list. So the way this works is, first of all, here I've got a JavaScript version of the function, right? I want to require, I've got a regular function, subscribe to Magento customer data function, and it takes a callback, and I want to call the require.js require function, passing in an array with the component I want to use, and then I have a function which receives that component, and in this case, for customer data, it exposes a get method, and that's just plain old Magento JavaScript, right? So I can call get, which returns a knockout observable. And I can call subscribe on that observable and pass it a callback. So every time the observable value changes, my callback will be called. And so I subscribe to that change. And I also want to call that update function once with the current value of the observable. So I call the observable as a function. So if I want to do the same thing inside of ClojureScript, and this is, I want to go to full screen here because this doesn't work otherwise. Okay, that's a little better. So I have a function, subscribe to customer data function. It takes a callback. Same thing. I call window require, that's the regular require.js require function, passing in an array for the UI component that I want to get, receive that array in a function, call get on the thing that I received. I want to get the customer observable, assign it to a variable, then I call subscribe on that observable with my callback, and then I call the callback function once with the current value. So the callback function is a function that just dispatches the event set owner name with the first name property that's being passed in. So you can see that the interoperability, it's almost one-to-one. It's just a little bit of rearranging the order of things. Again, it might look foreign, but it's actually very common, very something we know. Okay, so no time, unfortunately, to go any deeper here. But I really want to stress again, for me as a developer, having this kind of quick feedback loop makes me very productive. Also, you might have noticed that all of the functions once that I was writing, they're all pure functions. They only receive data and they return data. And that's a very nice thing because it greatly enhances testability and reliability and reasonability. So, Clojure is extremely stable. Time to wrap up, so I'm almost done here. Clojure has 10 years of history already, and it's really the long-term game for me. It's rock solid. It's still backward compatible to version 1. There are more Clojure developers than Clojure jobs. So as a company, it's maybe not a bad move to look at maybe adding Clojure to your tech stack. Right? It's very liable. There are a lot of really good ideas in Clojure. And this was probably one of the hardest talks I've ever had to prepare, because I had to throw out stuff, all the nice things that you get when you start using Clojure and ClojureScript. I want to talk about all of them, because I know what you don't know, that is, you want to know about them, right? If you knew about them, you want to know about them, and I know that. So I can't just leave them out. So I added this long list of things here. Those are the actual reasons why it's nice to work with ClojureScript. Right? What I showed you so far are just like the basics to build on top of. And these are the reasons why I think ClojureScript is a wonderful addition to the tech stack, and it makes it possible to get done quickly and have okay code, right? Or even better. So I won't go into details there. If you want to go further, this is a great book to start, especially if you haven't been exposed to functional languages before. It's called Clojure for the Brave and True. You can read it online for free on the website True Clojure. It's really nice. I've also linked it here, so if you look at the slides on SlideShare later, you can go get it there. Yeah, fun book. It's not about ClojureScript though, but still it's Clojure, so there's a big overlap. You can also check out your local user groups. The Clojure user group in Manchester is called Lambda Launch, for some reason. They're meeting the next time on the 20th of November. If you live in a small town like I do and you don't have a Clojure meetup, then there's a virtual Clojure meetup. Look for it in meetup.com, and it's organized by a guy in Florida, by the way. Phil, just saying. Say hi. Ah, there you are. There's also Clojure Bridge, and Clojure Bridge is an organization which provides Clojure introductory workshops with the reason is they want to increase diversity in the tech community. So if you feel you belong to a minority, then you can go there for free and have 1-2 day workshops. And they're international. I know a few people from the Berlin Clojure Bridge. They're very smart and friendly and welcoming. And the next Clojure Bridge in London is on the 17th and 18th, next week. So maybe that's for you. All right, thanks to Laura and Matthew for, I don't know, Laura isn't here, but Matthew's here. I can't see you, the lights are bright. There you go. Thank you for the feedback, that was really valuable. And that's it, but before, I don't know if there's time for questions, I just want to pull this up. Quick brief plug for my project. Check out Mage2 TV, and all the information about that is on there. All right, any questions? And if we have time, I don't know.
We've got a break coming up, if you can get grabbed out there.
Okay, yeah, grab me in the break. Thank you.